So a lot of people. Oh, okay. We have lots of people today. I'm not sure why. Interesting. So here we go. We we have lots of people. So good afternoon, students. Today I'm talking about part two of understanding dynamics of technology-enabled business. And the context is last week, I was talking a little bit about digital literacy and the importance of mindset for entrepreneurs and tied the two. That was what we talked about. For those who don't know, it was actually streamed on YouTube and you can find it on my channel, Suzanne Muir. So this one is also being streamed. I think this might be the second class I've actually streamed online. So the context is we spoke last week about digital literacy, and there are many definitions. So there are two on the screen at the moment. So the American Library Association defines digital literacy as the ability to use ICT to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information requiring both cognitive and technical skills. And this blog that I found critiqued it and said that they thought that was a really bad uh, definition. There are actually many of them, you know. And what I liked about this one particular one, it says it's the ability to interpret and design nuanced communication. I actually like that because that is part of what we really want for people who are digital entrepreneurs. Because if you're not able to both create, design, and interpret communication that is fluid, it's unlikely, depending on the business that you're in, that you're going to be superb at online tech entrepreneurship. And certainly, we all, I hope, already know that digital literacy is much more than having basic skills like opening an email account, sending a SMS, which is a text, um, using social media and the like. So I think you all perhaps would know that a digital native is somebody who's born and finds digital technology like smartphones around. And then there are people like me, which would be most people in this class, people like me who's a digital nomad, that I came into this earth. And yes, there was the internet, but there was not yet the web when I was born. So I'm a digital nomad since I had to come and jump onto it after I was around. So whether you're a digital native or a nomad, digital literacy is so critical for a tech startup person. Now, some of the essentials include locating and consuming digital content. It involves evaluating that content using critical thinking skills. Kindly mute your mic, please, because we certainly have seen, even though this is not particular, since the pandemic, the amount of misinformation that people are having problems evaluating online. A key educational element is the ability to create digital content. So lots of people can consume content and even find it using simple search engine tools. The problem is evaluating it and creating it is locating and communicating tends to be less of a problem. However, communicating in creative ways is not the simplest of things because, for example, there is clearly business value in creating viral videos and any viral content, in viral memes. And so to communicate both curated, which basically means things that exist already, and new content and digital platforms, all of these four together are all critical for what is needed if you're going to be really good in as a digital entrepreneur. So there are many things that as somebody who is thinking of starting a business online, might want to consider. So you want to keep current in your field, you want to actively create digital content, and you want to communicate with others in creative fashions online. So to keep current with your field, reading is essential. You know, it it goes without saying these days that watching videos can be helpful, and attending training sessions, because especially for people in your field, iron sharpens iron. In fact, it's not just attending training sessions, it can also be things like going to sessions that are masterminds. There are all kind of online forums that can help people train. So it's not just the one to many, but the many to many sessions that can help, right? And then in terms of actively creating digital content, there is the deciding which digital platform. Is it social media? Is it website? Is it what? The whole business of creating content is vital for all tech startups. Because if you are a tech startup and don't have a website, I don't care what you are going to say, you're not ready. So it's not just having social media presence. You actually need to have both a website and you need to have social media presence of some sort. Both are critical, and for those who don't think it's critical, you can start with just one, but you actually need at least both. Then and both of that is those are all non-trivial skills. And then even if you're not going to be in software development, it's good to have some general idea of the software development lifecycle. And so we're going to talk about it in this lecture. And you should have some idea of the differences between linear and agile software development lifecycle. So we're going to explain that. And then all tech startup venture founders, let's call them tech startup founders, must be able to communicate with others well. And so you communicate with other stakeholders, so like your other co-founders, your employees, perhaps your other business partners, like the companies that you buy from, as well as, yeah, that would be internal, external. And then clearly it's very critical to connect with the clients in engaging ways. And that involves many different things, which we'll talk about in a bit. So how do you keep current? Well, keep current. This is just a really general. You need to think about how can you apply lifelong learning. So unfortunately, a lot of you come to a university and either miss the orientation where they tell you that you come to read for your degree. But as I said earlier, on the list of lifelong learning is reading, because that is the best. The reason why Warren Buffett, I don't know if he's the richest, but he's in the top 10 for sure, richest man in the world, that he reads every day, is the way how he has learned how to be really good in the stock market is by reading. Everybody, not everybody, many people who are very smart read a lot. No, you can be very smart without reading, but it certainly is a critical thing to do if you want to be sure to keep learning. At any rate, you want to think about how to learn. And for whatever your role is or will be, you want specific skills. You want, in whichever area you are, to find out the best practices of an industry. And for that, you tend to want to go deep into that area and find out whatever it is that you can do to learn that, learn the concepts, whether that requires formal education or training. That training can be, and when I say formal education and training, that can be very informally, that you just sit down by yourself and buy a whole series of books. But the point is, or, do some free online videos. It's going to be very important if you are going to be likely to be good at something, for you to be finding out what are the best practices of the industry. It could even be, for example, that you do cutting research that you figure out yourself, so you can figure out what are the best practices of your industry. I'm just speaking really general here, but the only way to be the best at something is to either do research yourself or learn from other people who are doing it best. It's not a trivial thing. And then there's a lot of value of going wide, learning broadly. So there's more and more value of the generalist. For example, I put Steve Jobs here as an example. He has boasted, I know he's no longer dead. For those who don't know, he founded Apple. You know, Apple, I hope you all know Apple. Apple, the company, computer company. He boasted that when he went and learned calligraphy, that really assisted on some things in, I think it was India, that really assisted him in um, giving him the kind of broad ways of looking at the world that helped him as he started Apple, and it was not sort of like other companies. I don't know, but there have been a lot of people, and in fact, computer companies these days are very much interested, as in the large ones, you know, like the Googles and the Apples, in hiring people who don't have computer degrees because they find that it's not just people who have computer skills that actually have value in that industry. So you want to think, how are all the ways that you can continue to learn outside of a university setting and while you're at university that will help you to know what you need to know to do the business that you are doing or thinking of doing. And you can do that. That list here may not be comprehensive, but I am suggesting reading, videos, training, and other kinds of interactive sessions with people. Oops. So, in addition to that, as a tech startup founder, you may have heard the expression content is king. So content is king is we're living in a world that we used to live in a world where the only people who produce content that would affect people who were journalists or people who had a lot of power. But given the internet, content is produced by almost anybody. And given that content is so important, a business have to think about what they're going to do about online content. So there are lots of things to decide. I hope you all know that video is the most important by far. So it is video, text, infographics, posts, stories, and all of those things you need to research for your particular kind of business, what makes the most sense, and what if testing is also important. So if you're going to use video on Instagram and video on Facebook, it could be that, as an example, it could be that video on Instagram works better and stories on Facebook works better for your particular audience. The point is you won't know until you test it. So there is all kind of ways to read and see the competitors as to what they're doing, but there needs to be testing for each of these things to see what really works in your particular prospective business. Then you have to think about where. As I was saying earlier, I don't know why in Jamaica so many small businesses and micro businesses seem to not want to invest in a website. A website is still critical. You can go and read all about it. All the experts still recommend a website. It makes your business look professional. You're not going to make a business look professional. Is there anybody here who knows why you should not only, why a website is important? Let me help you out. What just happened to Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp the other day? Sorry, it was all it's same company, so they now want to call themselves Metaverse. So Metaverse, what does happen to Metaverse? The company has just renamed themselves Metaverse. So Facebook, the company who have now rebranded or renamed themselves as Metaverse. Sorry, nobody here knows what happened about a month or so ago. Why in the chat? People don't want to talk. It's not just rebranded, Gordon. They actually have renamed. They've renamed themselves legally. And then I've heard that that there's some contestation as to the renaming. But that's not a question. Real question now. What happened the other day? I'm more concerned. Yes, I'm more concerned about what tragic thing happened the other day.
Is it when
Come again?
all the Meta or Facebook owned apps were down?
Right, that's what I'm waiting to hear. So for whatever, a few hours, the the apps were down. And so why would I say that a website is important? Anybody give me a company? Which one are you? Give me which company here? Which one do you want to say? Who was that talking? Was that Lisa? Or was that Kian? Kiana? Was that you?
Yes, it was.
Yes, Kiana, glad to see you back. Kiana. So I'm still trying to figure out what would that somebody give me an example of with your proposed business, how if you had a Instagram and WhatsApp link, how if it was down for 5 hours, how would that affect your business? And why you agree with me that a website would be useful? Come. No.
You'd probably lose a lot of money because
No, I want something specific. So tell me how the website would help.
A website would help because it's reliable.
No, man. No, hold on. Give me the example. What? Yeah, man. But give me an example of what the business is going to explain the business. Give me what transaction or what would happen that you would lose and how would the website help? Be really specific so we can all understand.
I'm not understanding at the moment.
Denzel is actually answering the question well. What I want no specific. So Denzel is saying what I wanted. So Denzel says your website is important because you basically own your own space on the internet. That's exactly what I wanted, Denzel. A+. So Denzel got it. So I don't know how the whole 80% of Jamaicans don't understand this basic concept. Denzel, you're right on target. So sorry, you are right, Kiana. What I wanted was what specific transaction you're going to lose. So Jordan is also right. A website can be a way customers can keep in touch. So the people know that they know your business name. They could Google your thing, find your website, and then find the phone number and call you on the phone. Or even old school and send you an email, not true? But what I wanted to do was with an example. So let me go with the group that is doing the custom parts. So the people wanted the custom parts today for something that is critical for the business, and they're having a problem getting you. And the thing is mission critical to something that, and they're not going to pay you if you don't get it that day. And somehow there's some mix up, whatever. So it is because all these people are relying on WhatsApp, right? Literally relying on WhatsApp. And I don't even know how I personally feel how I feel. The point is, if you don't have these alternatives, it leads to problems. Not true? Kian, are you still not understanding?
Yeah, I get it now.
Yes. Right. So the point is you could have a website where you could have maybe chat on the website, interactive chat. You could have a website that the website would have the email address, the phone numbers for your business. It could have, if really fancy, it could have like quotes for the business on there. It depends on what you want on there. But the point is, at the very minimum, it has contact information. If it's fancy, it has other stuff as well. But the point is, there is a possibility that even Facebook, the company, which has happened. So if we had said it 1 year ago, people would say, no, that could never happen. We don't have to wonder now when Facebook actually went down for a few hours. So we know it can happen again. We don't have to wonder anymore. It has happened. So the point is, And aside from that, Facebook can actually decide, which has happened too, that they don't want you on your platform. And for those who don't know, that does happen. So if they don't want you on their platform, you can actually lose all your customers. Remember now, Facebook has WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook. So if you only contact from them, you don't have a database of the customers. Can you imagine? You lose all your customers. In case you guys are wondering, you need a website if you're in business. In fact, you probably also need a database of your customers. I didn't put that there because right now it's about content creation. So the point is, you should be putting content on your website and content on social media platforms. Because right now, the context that I'm talking right now is about why content is so important. We're living in a day and age where content attracts people to businesses. Yes? So video is the key, is like the queen of the content, right? And depending on whatever it might be, it might also be infographics, posts, stories, text, so many other things. I'm not giving you a comprehensive list. And even though you almost might be wondering, why did I not put social media platforms first? It's because people seem to be forgetting that websites is not optional. It might be optional for the first few months of your business if you are completely broke. Because remember, even a website, it can be, you can actually use a free website host initially. So what is the reason for not having a website that you get for free? It's just laziness, in my opinion. So the point is, you really want it, where possible, have a one-page website at the minimum, so people can find out where you are. Usually it's better to actually own your own URL, that you don't, so you have your own .com or .org or .net or whatever, so that it looks more professional. And then you're putting both your own content as well as perhaps created content on that website. So people can see, yes, here they want it to be dynamic, not just a static website. Yes. And how often you want it to be regular. Now that regular is going to depend on your business, but it should not be put up a website or a social media stream and it's only updated once every 6 months. Do I need to explain why? I think you all understand just patently. So this needs to be on some kind of regular basis. And in general, at the worst, it should be once every 3 months. And for many things, it should be at least once a week. And for some things, it should be perhaps, like for example, if you have a YouTube channel, it's not recommended once or twice a week. If it's a YouTube channel, that's your primary platform. So it really all depends on the frame of your business, and then who are you going to create it internally among the people who are the founders? Are you going to outsource? Are you going to do a combination? And I didn't put how because how is all about how you're going to figure out how to be somebody who's going to be educating yourself. But this lecture today is just giving a frame as to why you're all going to be lifelong learners if you're going to be digital entrepreneurs. So I'm just giving a frame today for the way forward. And so, even if you have never done an introduction to software engineering or software development class, this is now going to be a short little talk on software development design. Now, in this class, you had an option to either do basically a kind of a PDF or a graphic or a website for your, the tool that represents the product, if it's an online product. And I think most of you are going to end up doing a graphic. But the point is, since many of you are conceiving something that is relating to some online thing, it is good for you as a tech startup to have some idea of what this is about. So the first thing I would say is the software development lifecycle. There are many versions of it. So here's one version. You want to first define the project scope. You want to develop the software. It's a you. Software development can happen either internal to a business or external by some software development company. So there is a requirements analysis where the analysts define the project scope. That's usually done by a combination of the business and the analyst. Analyst can be internal or external. Then there actually is the development of the software itself, which is done by a programmer. And then you want to actually make sure that that particular software works, and they go through this, alpha and beta testing. Then that product goes to the customer. And I don't know why, but for some reason, maintenance and support tends to be forgotten about, even though it's so critical. So this is one particular, this is 5-stage model here. I just chose a few from the web, just in a random way. Here's another possible way to look at it. So you have the concept and ideation. Then after you figure out what you think you want as an idea, then you go out to the actual users and stakeholders and painstakingly gather all the requirements for all types of end user groups. This is actually, especially when it's many different users, this should be quite complex. Then you have the actual design, which is done by especially when it's actually a more complicated project, the design and development are separated. So the design is sort of like the big picture, and development is actually the coding. Then there's a period where you do testing and quality assurance. The testing is usually done by the developers. The quality assurance is done by people who are hired just for testing. Then there is a phase where you go to live for actually implementation in wherever it's being used. And then it needs to be adopted by the end users. By the way, no matter what the kind of project is, just because something is deployed doesn't mean that most of the end users actually adopt it on an ongoing basis. And then it's completed. The completion might lead to different versions of that particular thing, and it just keeps going on because you may realize that you want to improve the project. So this is an iterative thing which goes again and again as you continue to improve the software. Then there are questions like, this nice website, is the software development life cycle obsolete? Is it? So it's the same sort of thing where we have the requirements analysis followed by the design, the implementation, the testing. What's this? The deployment and the maintenance. So I'll tell you, everyone you look at, it's different versions of, if you look at about 10 textbooks, you might see what I want to call 12 different versions. There's so many versions of software development lifecycle. Sorry, let me back up. Everybody following what I mean? The life cycle is, here are the stages of software development. So in order to create software, which is all even a website is software, right? So anything that you develop that an end user on a computer system is going to use is software. So any kind of software development requires some process that it's going through. It is very simple. And the more complicated the software is, then the software development lifecycle may need to be more complicated. So just giving a really quick overview. So some people argue that it's obsolete. The thing about it, it's very common these days. So for the last few years to talk about agile software development lifecycle. It's very popular in industry. And the idea is that because the traditional software development lifecycle sort of looks like this. It's linear, whereas X follows that, follows that, follows that, follows that. I haven't showed you, but there's something called the waterfall model. So the waterfall model says that the first stage must finish, then the second phase must be the next. And it's not exactly like this. This is a version of what is here. So the waterfall model is a traditional software development lifecycle, and that works well for large projects in large companies that have a certain set of features. And it doesn't even always work well. It might work well. But what they found, it doesn't work well in many situations. And so because it doesn't work well in many situations, there is a hesitancy towards using traditional software development, especially waterfall model. But there are many other types of software engineering methodologies, and one of them is called agile, right? And so the traditional method tends to be very long and time consuming and lead to all kinds of problems. So agile is much more less time consuming and tend to be better meet the user's needs. And there are two approaches, iterative and incremental. And so we're going to talk quickly about each of them. So the incremental approach, you divide the software into a number of modules. So remember, just like how any software in has different modules, you add each functionality, and at the end of it, you can get to a minimal viable product pretty fast. In fact, you can just decide that you only want 2 or 3 features and that's it. So in fact, most of you, as you're writing, have been writing things that is way beyond your minimal viable product. And I think what most of you need to do is to actually find a way to determine what are the 2 or 3 functions in your software that are actually, or maybe it's not software, or your product that's actually minimal for what the people really want, and just build those. When I say build those, even build those in terms of what you're going to show to the people. This is what you're really wanting. And then there's the iterative approach. So incremental says, let's not build everything. Let's just build the ones that people really want first. The iterative approach says, okay, let's build it and then refine it. So you create it and you get the feedback from persons, and that means that the development team can work on various parts of the product at the same time, because you say, okay, we divide it up and we have maybe different sections, and we have a large team and people are working on different parts of the product, and it's fairly easy to make the changes. The iterative approach will work better in a larger organization. Incremental approach works better in a smaller organization. So there's so much parts of the software development lifecycle that's important, but I wanted to focus on software testing. Just like we've been talking about developing the product and customer development, because at the end of it, if it is that your project, what you're going to do involves software, if you don't think about software testing, you're going to have a big problem in general. So there are 4 major elements of software testing, and they are unit testing, integration testing, system testing, and acceptance testing. And I have a description on the screen, so I guess I could just read from the screen. But basically, unit testing is the simplest part. It's very simple. The programmer who develops a unit tests that unit to see if it works as per the specification I mentioned earlier. Integration testing is where you use 2 or more. So let's say you take 2 units that's supposed to work together and make sure when you put them together, they actually work. And that can either be the developer, like the programmer, or a quality assurance person who does the integrated testing. The system testing now is where you take the entire system that maybe it has 5 modules, you take all 5 modules, put them together, and you do a proper functional testing of the system. As in, functional testing means that it works as it's supposed to. Acceptance testing is now making sure that the end user, that's the actual fancy word for the people who use the software, actually say, yes, this is what we want. So if it is that somebody was buying software from you, it would be that the company buying it says, yes, this is in line with the written contract and the requirements that was in the contract. If it is something like free software online, it is you have some focus group or online user groups that give feedback. No matter what the situation is, it's when you know, like actual written or oral communication, that people say, yes, this is what is wanted. And so at the end of it, you actually want all of these to be done. And one of the things that a lot of people who don't learn programming is, for some reason, don't know that there's no such thing as perfect software. No, they know because they see it and they say, yeah, man, what's wrong with these people? But at the end of it, unless it's the most simplest programming is so complex that it is near to impossible to get software to work perfectly. No, it's actually not hard to have a simple website working properly because the website is simple. But if you're talking about a sophisticated software program that does some complicated things, but so depending on what you're going to do, if you're going to do something sophisticated, you're going to need to do unit testing integrated. Now, for our website, you won't be going through all of this, but it could be that as part of what you're doing, you are going to be producing software that is going to require all of these elements. But you all need to have this idea that at the very minimum, you want to be thinking of any kind of software involved in your company. You need to have at the minimum unit testing, system testing, and acceptance testing, no matter what it is, because you want the clients to be okay with whatever is being done. Really, at the end of it, if you're not pleasing the clients or the potential clients, how is your business going to work? If it is that you need software that you're going to have employees and they're not accepting, how is your business going to work? So you have to think about testing. There's a lot of testing that happens in business for it to be successful. So I looked at one scholarly paper. So there's a paper published last year that looked at what are the current industry challenges in software testing, according to people who are working in the field right now. And this was done in 8 countries, 72 practitioners, and they did an online survey. And they found that the most challenging activities were test management and test automation. So for those who don't know, testing is now being done with computers. So you can actually test whether a software program actually does what it's supposed to do using automated tools, as in software programs that doesn't do that. That's actually tricky. You can actually do whole courses and whole program just on that. But even test management, as in companies what are large actually hire a whole team of quality assurance people to test. It's not a simple thing. So just giving you the big picture, that if as part of your tech startup, you decide to do software development, it's a non-trivial thing. And then actually the same software led to a list of 104 concrete challenges that need further investigation by the research community. Wow. And so what they also found is that there was a lot more opportunity for there to be collaboration between industry and academic to improve software testing. And then the last thing I want to talk about is creative communication. So we can think about collaboration online with stakeholders. So communication is very important in business, and we want that kind of online communication with business partners, contractors, employees, and partners. And we also want engaging connection with clients. So we want to share new content, both on social media and websites. We want to share curated content, as in content already exists, because people tend to, like good content that's valuable based on your business. And very important is to respond to suggestions and complaints by clients. And then you want to think about how can you maintain good relationship with customers on digital platforms. And this needs attention by not just, low-level staff, so to speak, at our line staff, but it must also involve the business owners and managers. This requires not just tech stuff, requires human touch. It may be improved by the CRM, that is the customer relationship management tool. So there are software tools that can help with interaction between customers. And there are other analytical tools to do so. For example, you can actually look at your website and do analytics and all of that. That's possible. But if you don't have the human touch, meaning, texting, emails, social media interactions, whatever, maybe WhatsApp calls, Zoom calls, whatever it is, whatever it works, if you don't have that human thing, you're going to have problems with good relations with people online. It cannot just be all digital interactions if you want it to work really well. And so there should be some people give some things, there should be some responses that happen, maybe automatic, or that maybe there comes some AI, artificial intelligent answers that if this comes up, then this is the automatic answer. But then there should also be some analytics to see somebody gave a complicated question. Let's give back an answer that makes sense. Yeah, so the answers can't just be one size fits all. And this is my only reference so far. So that is that for me. And I'm going to end my YouTube